This story is inspired by real events and documented moments from Amy Winehouse's life. Some scenes have been dramatized to capture the emotional truth of her connection with fans. Amy's voice cracked mid-verse. The Dublin Castle went silent. 300 people packed hip to hip stopped moving, stopped breathing. Amy Winehouse had just done something nobody expected. She'd stopped singing. Her hand dropped from the microphone. Her eyes locked on someone in the front row. The band kept playing for 3 more seconds before they realized what was happening. Then they stopped too. Complete silence. It was April 19, 2007, Thursday night, the Camden Crawl Festival. Amy's homecoming show in the legendary backroom of the Dublin Castle Pub on Parkway. The same sticky-floored, poster-plastered venue where she used to pull pints for strangers just 3 years earlier. Back to Black had conquered the world 6 months ago. 5 Grammy nominations, #1 in 17 countries. Amy Winehouse was the biggest name in music, but tonight she was back where she belonged, in Camden, in the castle, with her people. Except something was wrong. Amy stood frozen at the microphone, her trademark beehive slightly crooked, eyeliner smudged from sweat. She was staring at a girl in the front row, a girl who was crying so hard her whole body shook. "Hold on," Amy whispered into the mic. The room held its breath. Sarah Mitchell didn't know what was happening. One moment she was trying desperately to hide her tears in a crowd of 300. The next moment, Amy Winehouse was staring directly at her. Everything else disappeared. The music, the crowd, the heat, the noise. Just Amy's eyes, dark, intense, seeing everything. Sarah was 19 years old. She'd saved for 3 months to afford this ticket, skipped meals, walked everywhere instead of taking the bus, picked up extra shifts at the cafe where she worked. Tonight was supposed to be perfect, the night she finally saw Amy Winehouse live in Camden at the Dublin Castle, the most intimate venue Amy would ever play again. But 2 hours before doors opened, Sarah's phone rang, her mother calling from the hospital. The cancer was back, stage 4 this time. The doctors gave her 6 weeks, maybe 8. Sarah almost didn't come, almost went straight to the hospital, almost threw her ticket in the bin and got on the next train to Manchester. But her mom said 3 words that changed everything. "Go see Amy." So Sarah came, alone, shaking, trying to hold herself together. She'd made it through the first 4 songs, swaying with the crowd, singing along, pretending everything was fine. Then Amy started playing "Love is a Losing Game," and Sarah broke. The lyrics hit her like a physical blow, every word about loss and love and the pain that comes with both. Sarah's vision blurred, her chest tightened. She couldn't breathe. Tears came fast, mascara running down her cheeks in black rivers. Body convulsing with sobs she couldn't control. She tried to hide it, tried to turn away, but the crowd was packed too tight. Nowhere to go, nowhere to run. And then Amy stopped singing. Amy set down her microphone carefully, like it was something precious, something fragile. She walked to the edge of the stage. The Dublin Castle stage was barely 2 feet off the ground, close enough to touch, close enough to see every detail of every face in the front row, close enough to see Sarah falling apart. Amy crouched down, eye level now with the crying girl. "You," Amy said, pointing directly at Sarah. "What's your name, darling?" Sarah couldn't speak. Her throat was closed. Her lungs weren't working properly. The crowd turned as one, 300 faces suddenly looking at her. Sarah wanted to disappear, wanted to melt into the floor, wanted to be anywhere but here. But Amy's eyes held her in place. "It's okay," Amy said softly, her voice barely audible over the confused murmurs of the crowd. "Take your time. What's your name?" Sarah forced air into her lungs. "Sarah," she managed to whisper. Amy nodded. "Sarah. Okay. Hi, Sarah." Behind Amy, the band stood frozen. Robin Banerjee, her guitarist, would say later that he'd played hundreds of shows with Amy. Big stages, festivals, television broadcasts. But he'd never seen her do this. Stop mid-song, break the fourth wall so completely, connect so directly. This was something else. Amy stayed crouched at the stage edge, still looking at Sarah. "Why are you crying, Sarah?" The question hung in the thick air of the Dublin castle. The room was silent except for someone coughing near the back, the smell of beer and sweat and anticipation. Sarah opened her mouth. Nothing came out. "It's okay," Amy repeated. "You don't have to tell me, but I'm here and I'm listening if you want to talk." The kindness in her voice broke something in Sarah. She took a shaking breath. "My mom," she said, her voice cracking on both words. "She's dying." Amy's face changed. Something flickered behind her eyes. Pain, recognition, a deep, immediate understanding. She reached down from the stage and took Sarah's hand. Her palm was warm, calloused from guitar strings. Real. "Come here," Amy said. Before Sarah could process what was happening, Amy was pulling her up onto the stage. Security moved forward instinctively, but Amy waved them back with her free hand. "It's fine," Amy told them. "She's with me." Sarah stood on the stage, Amy Winehouse holding her hand, 300 people watching in stunned silence. The stage lights were bright, too bright. Sarah could feel sweat running down her back, could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. This wasn't real. This couldn't be happening. But Amy's hand in hers was solid, real, anchoring her to this impossible moment. "What's your mum's name?" Amy asked. "Linda." Amy nodded slowly. Then she turned to face the crowd, still holding Sarah's hand. "Everyone," Amy said, her voice filling the room. "This is Sarah. Her mum's name is Linda, and Linda is very sick, dying sick." The crowd was utterly silent now. Some people were crying too. Amy continued. "Sarah came here tonight because her mum told her to. Even though Linda is in a hospital bed right now, even though Sarah probably should be there with her, Linda told her daughter to come here, to see me, to hear music, because music matters, because we all need something to hold on to when the world is falling apart." Sarah felt fresh tears running down her face. But they were different now, lighter somehow. Amy squeezed her hand. "This next song is for Linda and for Sarah and for everyone in this room who's ever lost someone they love or is losing them right now. This one's for you." She nodded to her band. They started playing. Love is a losing game. But this time, Amy sang it directly to Sarah, not to the crowd, not to the cameras filming from the back on their phones, to Sarah. Every word felt personal, intimate, like Amy had written the song specifically for this moment. Sarah stood there, tears streaming down her face, as Amy Winehouse sang about loss and love and the unbearable weight of both. The crowd swayed behind her, some singing along quietly, some crying openly now. When Amy reached the bridge, her voice cracked with emotion. Real emotion, not performed, not theatrical. She was feeling it too, the song built to its climax. Amy's voice soaring over the small room like a cathedral choir. Sarah felt the music in her chest, in her bones, in the place where grief had been sitting like a stone. The final note hung in the air. Perfect, devastating. The room erupted, applause like thunder, cheers, screams, people jumping, crying, hugging strangers. Amy pulled Sarah into a hug before the applause even started. A real hug, not performative, not for show, just two people who understood what it meant to hurt. "Your mom raised someone brave," Amy whispered directly into Sarah's ear, her breath warm, her voice breaking. "Don't you ever forget that." Sarah couldn't speak, could only hold on. Amy pulled back, looked Sarah in the eye. Then she reached up and unclasped the necklace she was wearing, a simple gold chain with a small pendant. Nothing fancy, but clearly something Amy wore often. The clasp was worn, the chain slightly tarnished. "Give this to Linda," Amy said, pressing it into Sarah's palm. Her hand closed Sarah's fingers around it. "Tell her Amy Winehouse said she's a warrior. Tell her that matters. Tell her she matters." Sarah looked down at the necklace in her hand. It was still warm from Amy's skin. "I can't," Sarah started. "You can," Amy interrupted. "And you will, for Linda." "Yeah?" Sarah nodded, unable to speak. Security moved forward then, gently. One of them offered Sarah his hand to help her down from the stage. The crowd parted for her like water, like Moses at the Red Sea. People touched her shoulder as she passed, strangers hugging her, crying with her, whispering encouragements. Sarah made her way back to where she'd been standing. The spot felt different now, charged, holy. Amy watched her go, made sure Sarah was okay. Then she picked up her microphone and said, "Right then, where were we?" The band kicked back into rehab. The Dublin Castle exploded back to life. Amy commanded that stage like she'd never stopped, dancing, laughing, belting out every note with the force of a hurricane. But everyone in that room knew they'd witnessed something else, something beyond performance, beyond entertainment. They'd witnessed connection, pure and unfiltered. Amy played 6 more songs, each one more energetic than the last. She was sweating through her dress, hair coming loose from the beehive, eyeliner running into war paint. She looked beautiful, powerful, alive. Between songs, she'd scan the crowd, making eye contact with people, winking, blowing kisses, making sure everyone felt seen. When she finished Valerie, the crowd was so loud the windows rattled. Amy grinned. "Camden," she shouted over the noise, "this is home. You're home. I fucking love you." The crowd roared back their love. The set ended 45 minutes later. Amy took a bow, blew kisses, then disappeared backstage through the tiny door behind the drum kit. Usually that was it. Show over. Amy gone. But tonight was different. 20 minutes later, Amy emerged from backstage, not through the performer entrance, through the front door, like a regular punter. She'd changed into jeans and a leather jacket, hair still wild, face still flushed from performing. She walked straight to the bar. The Dublin Castle bar was packed, people 3 deep trying to order drinks. But when Amy appeared, the crowd parted instinctively. Amy waved them closed. "Nah, none of that. I'm just getting a drink." She ordered a Rick Stacy, the Dublin Castle special, vodka, banana liqueur, Southern Comfort, mixed by the same bartender who'd been serving her for 4 years. "On the house," he said, sliding it across. Amy shook her head. "Nah, mate, I'll pay." She pulled a crumpled 20 from her pocket. Insisted. Someone nearby asked for a photo. Amy said yes, then someone else, then someone else. For 20 minutes, Amy Winehouse stood at the bar of the Dublin Castle, taking photos, signing napkins and arms and set lists, chatting with strangers like they were old friends. This was the Amy people didn't see on television, the Amy the tabloids never captured. Warm, funny, present. Someone asked her about Sarah. Amy's expression changed, softened. "That wasn't about me," she said quietly. "That was about her, about Linda, about everyone who needs to know they're not alone." She took a long drink. "We're all going through something, yeah? All of us? And sometimes you just need someone to see you, really see you. That's all." The person asking nodded, seemed to understand. Amy raised her glass toward the stage, toward the spot where she'd stood with Sarah. "To Linda," she said. Everyone within earshot raised their drinks. "To Linda." The moment passed. Amy went back to signing autographs and taking photos, making small talk, being present. Eventually, her security team touched her elbow. Time to go. Amy nodded. She hugged the bartender goodbye, waved to the crowd, walked out into the Camden night. By the next morning, word had spread through Camden like wildfire. Not through social media. Twitter barely existed. Facebook was for universities. The story spread the old way, person to person, mouth to ear, in coffee shops and pubs and on street corners. Did you hear what Amy did last night? She stopped the show, brought a girl on stage, gave her a necklace, made everyone cry. The details varied slightly from telling to telling, but the core remained the same. Amy Winehouse had seen someone hurting, and she'd stopped everything to help. Sarah Mitchell went home that night clutching Amy's necklace. She didn't sleep, just sat at her kitchen table, looking at the gold chain catching lamplight. At 6 in the morning, she got on a train to Manchester, to the hospital where her mother lay in a room that smelled like antiseptic and flowers. Linda was awake when Sarah arrived, tired but awake. "How was it?" Linda asked immediately, her voice thin, weak. Sarah opened her palm, showed her mother the necklace. Linda's eyes widened. "What is that?" Sarah told her everything, the whole story, from Amy stopping mid-song to the hug to the words whispered in her ear. "She said you're a warrior," Sarah finished. "She said to tell you that you matter." Linda started crying, not from sadness, from something else, something bigger. Sarah fastened the necklace around her mother's neck. The gold chain looked bright against Linda's pale skin. "Amy Winehouse thinks I'm a warrior," Linda whispered, half to herself. She touched the pendant, smiled. For the next 6 weeks, Linda wore that necklace every day, even when the nurses tried to remove it for procedures, even when it got tangled in IV lines. "It's from Amy Winehouse," she'd explain. "It stays on." The nurses learned not to argue. Linda died on June 2, 2007, just before sunrise. Sarah was holding her hand. The last thing Linda touched was the necklace around her throat. They buried her wearing it. Sarah insisted. Some people thought it was wasteful, a celebrity's jewelry buried with a dead woman. But Sarah didn't care. The necklace wasn't valuable because of who gave it. It was valuable because of what it represented. That someone saw, that someone cared, that someone stopped everything to acknowledge Linda's existence mattered. 3 days after the funeral, a package arrived at Sarah's flat. No return address, just her name and address written in messy, slanted handwriting. Inside was a CD in a clear plastic case. The disc itself was blank except for black marker writing. For Linda. There was a note too, scrawled on lined paper torn from a notebook. "Sarah, I asked around Camden until someone knew. Someone who knew your address. Hope that's not creepy. I recorded something for your mom. Meant to give it to her myself, but I didn't get the chance. It's not perfect, just me and a piano. But it's real. Play it when you need to remember she was here, that she mattered, that you matter." Amy. Sarah's hand shook as she put the CD in her laptop. The old computer whirred and clicked as it loaded. Then Amy's voice filled the small flat. "Love is a losing game." But this version was completely different from the album, from the live show, from anything Sarah had heard before. This was intimate, raw, just Amy and a piano. No production, no band, no audience. Amy's voice cracked with emotion on certain words. She paused between verses to breathe, to collect herself. It was the most beautiful thing Sarah had ever heard. The song ended. 4 minutes of perfect, devastating beauty. Then Amy spoke. "Linda, I don't know you, but I know your daughter. I know Sarah, and anyone who raised someone that brave, that strong, that full of love. You must be incredible. This song is for you, for all the mothers who gave us everything and asked for nothing. Thank you for Sarah. Thank you for sharing her with the world. Thank you for telling her to come that night. I hope you know you're a warrior. I hope you know you matter. Rest easy now. Amy. Sarah played that CD twice more that day, 3 times the next, every day for a month. She never uploaded it to the internet, never shared it on social media, never sold it to a tabloid. The CD was private, sacred, a final gift from Amy to Linda and from Amy to Sarah. But she played it every year on the anniversary of her mother's death. June 2nd, every year without fail, and every time she cried. Not from sadness anymore, from gratitude, because Amy Winehouse taught her something that night in the Dublin Castle, something more important than music, more important than fame, or talent, or success. She taught her that connection matters, that seeing someone's pain and choosing to acknowledge it, really acknowledge it, can change everything. That stopping what you're doing to help someone is never wasted time. Amy died 4 years later, July 23, 2011, found in her Camden Square flat, alcohol poisoning, age 27. Sarah was at work when she heard the news. A customer had it on their phone, showed her the BBC headline. Sarah locked herself in the bathroom and sobbed for 30 minutes. Gut-wrenching sobs that hurt her ribs. She called in sick for the rest of the week. That Saturday, she went to Camden, to the Dublin Castle. The place was mobbed with mourners. Flowers everywhere, photos, notes, candles covering every surface. People were crying openly, hugging strangers, sharing stories. Sarah waited in line for 40 minutes to add her tribute to the pile growing outside the pub's front door. She'd written it on the back of the set list from that night in 2007, the one she'd kept folded in her wallet for 4 years, now creased and worn, but still readable. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for seeing my mom. You changed my life in 3 minutes, and I'll carry that forever. The world lost something irreplaceable, but heaven gained an angel. Rest in peace. Sarah Mitchell, April 19, 2007. She placed it carefully next to a photo of Amy laughing, her head thrown back, eyes crinkled, genuinely happy. That's how Sarah chose to remember her, not the tabloid version, not the tragic figure, not the cautionary tale, the woman who stopped singing mid-verse to hold a stranger's hand. The thing about that night at the Dublin Castle is that almost everyone there has a story, their own personal moment with Amy, their own connection. The photographer who captured Amy pulling Sarah on stage. He says that photo is his favorite from 40 years of music photography. The bartender who served Amy, that Rick Stacy. He still makes them the same way. Says Amy had particular opinions about the vodka to liqueur ratio. The security guard who helped Sarah down from the stage. He quit working security 6 months after Amy died. Said it didn't feel right anymore, that he'd witnessed something perfect and everything after felt hollow. Robin Banerjee, Amy's guitarist, still talks about it in interviews. I played hundreds of shows with Amy, he said in a 2019 podcast. Glastonbury, the Grammys, television broadcasts around the world. But that night in the Dublin Castle, that was Amy at her purest. No filter, no pretense, just raw humanity connecting with raw humanity. He paused. That's what music is supposed to be. What performance is supposed to be. Amy understood that in a way, most people never will. The Dublin Castle still hosts bands 7 nights a week, Wednesday through Sunday, 4 bands a night, DJs after on weekends. Rick Stacy still on the menu. It's still run by the same family, still has the same sticky floors and poster-covered walls, still smells like beer and sweat and history. There's a fresco of Amy on the back wall now, painted by a local artist in 2012. Amy mid-song, head back, eyes closed, alive. There's a signed photo behind the bar, Amy grinning at the camera, flanked by the Conlon family who owned the pub, who gave her shifts when she needed money, who let her hide behind the bar when the paparazzi got too intense. There's a plaque outside marking the pub as a historic music venue, where Madness got their start, where Blur played early gigs, where Amy Winehouse came home. But the real memorial isn't physical, it's in the stories, the memories, the moments that live in the minds of everyone who was there, like Sarah Mitchell. She's 36 now, married, 2 kids, a career as a grief counselor helping people process loss. She tells her clients about that night sometimes, when they're stuck in their grief, when they think nobody understands, when they feel invisible. She tells them about the night Amy Winehouse stopped a concert to see her, really see her. She tells them it's okay to hurt. That pain means love. That grief is just love with nowhere to go. She tells them they're not alone. Sometimes clients don't believe her. Amy Winehouse stopped for you? They ask skeptically. Sarah shows them the set list, still in her wallet after all these years. Amy's signature in silver Sharpie across the songs. She stopped for everyone, Sarah explains. That was her gift, making people feel seen. Her daughter asks sometimes about the CD Sarah plays every June 2nd, the one she treats so carefully, the one she never lets anyone else touch. Who's singing, Mummy? That's Amy Winehouse, Sarah says. She was my friend. It's not quite true. They met once, for maybe 10 minutes total, on a stage in Camden. But it's not quite false either, because Amy gave Sarah something precious that night, something that lasted, something that mattered, not just a necklace, not just a song. Recognition, the knowledge that her pain was valid, that her mother's life mattered, that she mattered. In a world that trains us to look away from pain, to stay distant, to protect ourselves from other people's hurt, that kind of recognition is revolutionary. That's the gift Amy gave freely, recklessly, constantly, to strangers and friends alike, in big venues and small pubs, on good days and bad. She saw people, really saw them, and she wasn't afraid to stop everything to let them know it. The Camden Crawl Festival stopped running in 2012. The organizers cited financial reasons, rising costs, declining attendance. But everyone who was there for the 2007 edition remembers it as legendary, not because of the big names, not because of the crowds or the venues or the production value, because Amy Winehouse reminded everyone what live music was supposed to be. Not performance, connection, not entertainment, communication, not transaction, transformation. Sarah Mitchell still goes to the Dublin Castle sometimes. Not often, maybe once a year, usually on April 19th, the anniversary. She doesn't announce herself, doesn't tell the Amy story unless someone specifically asks. She just stands near the stage, where she stood that night, and remembers. Sometimes other people approach her, recognize her from that famous photo, the one of Amy pulling her on stage. They want to know what it was like, what Amy said, what Amy smelled like, what the necklace looked like. Sarah always answers politely, but she keeps the important parts private. The words Amy whispered, the warmth of her hand, the look in her eyes that said, I see you, I understand, you're not alone. Those moments belong to Sarah, and to Linda, and to Amy. Nobody else needs them. What happened in the Dublin Castle that night wasn't unique to Amy. She stopped shows before, talked to fans between songs, pulled people on stage, broke the fourth wall constantly. Amy fundamentally rejected the traditional distance between performer and audience. She thought it was bullshit, performative, dishonest. Why would I stand up here pretending I'm better than them? She said once in an interview. We're all just people. They bought tickets. That doesn't make them less human. So she treated fans like people, like equals, like friends she hadn't met yet. And sometimes, like that night in Camden, she recognized someone in pain and did something about it. That's what made Amy dangerous to the industry. Not her addiction, not her volatility, not her refusal to play the game. Her authenticity. She couldn't fake it, couldn't maintain the mask, couldn't pretend to be anything other than exactly who she was. And who she was, fundamentally, was someone who cared, who connected, who saw. The Dublin Castle still gets busy on weekends, still has lines around the block for popular shows, still serves Rick Stacy to people who don't know its significance. But sometimes, on quiet weekday nights when there's just one band playing and a handful of regulars at the bar, you can feel something in the air, a weight, a warmth, a presence, the knowledge that something real happened here, something that mattered, something that changed lives. If you ask the bartenders about it, the ones who've worked there for years, they'll tell you they feel it too. Some nights you can almost see her, one bartender said in 2018. Not like a ghost, just a feeling like she's still here, still watching, still connecting. He paused, wiped down the bar. I don't believe in that stuff usually, but here, I believe it. On April 19, 2024, the Dublin Castle held a memorial concert, 17 years exactly since Amy stopped mid-song for Sarah Mitchell. Tribute bands played, local artists performed covers, people shared stories. Sarah Mitchell was there, standing in her old spot near the stage, listening, remembering. When the final band played Love is a Losing Game, half the room was crying. The other half was singing along through tears. Sarah closed her eyes, let the music wash over her, let herself remember everything. Amy's voice cracking mid-verse, the silence, the connection, the hug, the necklace, the words whispered, the gift given. When she opened her eyes, she could have sworn she saw Amy at the edge of the stage, crouching down, looking right at her, smiling. Then she blinked and the moment passed, but the feeling remained. The knowledge that Amy was right, that connection matters, that seeing people matters, that stopping everything to acknowledge someone's pain can change the world. One person at a time, one moment at a time, one stopped song at a time. That's Amy's legacy, not just the music, the connection, and it lives on in everyone she touched. Everyone who was there, everyone who hears the stories and feels something shift inside them. The understanding that we're all just people, all hurting, all hoping, all looking for someone to see us, really see us. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, someone stops what they're doing and says, "What's your name, darling?" That's when everything changes. That's when the world becomes a little less lonely. That's when we remember what it means to be human. Amy Winehouse died at 27, far too young, far too soon. But that night in the Dublin Castle, that lives forever. If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction or grief, please reach out for help. The Amy Winehouse Foundation continues her legacy by supporting vulnerable young people. You're not alone. The Amy Winehouse Foundation, www.amywinehousefoundation.org, UK Addiction. Support, Frank, 0300 123 6600. Grief Support, Cruise Bereavement Care, 0808 808 1677.